everyone, welcome back. This is video 2 in my sourdough series where I take you on my sourdough journey from longing for sourdough to actually baking some in your very own oven. I'm glad you can join me on this, and I hope I will demystify the process a little bit for you and make it seem less daunting. Last week, if you joined me, I covered the fundamentals of sourdough, why we should be eating it, and some of the things that you might need to still get and stock up in your kitchen in order to properly work with sourdough. So I hope you've gotten some of those things. Most importantly, of course, is the starter that I recommended that you buy, and also gathering together your a few tools that you would need. And what I want to do is, if you've ordered it and your starter and it has come and you were chomping at the bit and you just couldn't wait for me, I totally understand. And maybe you've already gotten your starter going and you've been working on activating it these last few days. That's great. But if you haven't felt brave enough to do that, that is totally fine. What I want you to do is go grab your package that came in the mail of your starter, and if you ordered it through Cultures for Health, which is where I bought mine, if you open the package, you'll find a little starter package as well as some instructions. And I've kept mine, and I bought the San Francisco sourdough starter, and I've been super happy with it. I've had it going for, I don't know, like 8 or 9 months now, and it is going strong. It is bubbly, active, provided I do what I need to do to it. And these instructions were invaluable. They were super helpful. I mean, there's a front side and a back side just chock full with how to activate it, what you need, and then on the back it tells you instructions for maintaining it and also gives you a basic sourdough recipe. Today what we're going to do is we're going to activate our starter, and it's fairly simple, as you can see from the ingredients, from the directions. It's really easy to do, and so let's get started doing that right now. Okay, so if you joined me last week, you'll recall that I asked you to go out and grab one of these mason jars, and I also suggested that you grab some cheesecloth and a rubber band, and you're going to need to get those out now. And go ahead and open up the package that was sent to you. Inside the package there will be a packet of dried or dehydrated yeasty organisms called a starter, and you are going to open up that packet and pour it into your mason jar. Now, I've used mine up, right? And I have this starter already going. So in this case, I'm going to just use about a tablespoon of my active starter just for demonstration purposes. Okay, so I'm going to put that in my mason jar, and you're going to have your starter packet. So go ahead and put that in. All right, and then according to the instructions that were sent to you with your starter, if you look under the section activating the starter, it says add your packet, okay, and then 1 tablespoon of flour and 1 tablespoon of water into the jar, and then stir that up. And you're going to just simply mix this up until the flour has fully absorbed the water. And it's going to seem a little bit thick, and that's okay. This is just day 1, and you're going to just blend this up, okay? And then, of course, mine's a little bit stickier than yours, probably, and I'm going to just put that in there. And then what we're going to do is simply put the cheesecloth onto the mason jar and affix the rubber band, and there you go. That's it. That's all you need to do. Easy, right? Well, since we're done mixing our starter, that's pretty much it. See you next time. Bye. Just kidding. Let's talk a little bit about a couple of things that are important for making your starter work, bringing it to life, because you've now activated it, okay? And if you follow these instructions that they have provided with the packet that came in the mail, you will see that on the second day, you will again need to add flour and water in about the same, actually a little bit more. You'll need to double actually the proportions. And then on the third day, you'll add even more, like a 1/4 cup of each. And then on the 4th day, you're going to add about a 1/2 cup of each. Okay, so each day you're going to be incrementally increasing the amounts of flour and water to your starter. All right, come day 5, you are now going to need to start withdrawing before you deposit. And the reason for that is simply because you've got this jar, right? And you have been steadily increasing the quantities, and pretty soon this thing is going to blow. In fact, it has on me. It's ended up all over my counter before. It makes quite the mess, and the stuff is like glue. It can be a little bit difficult to get off the counter and off your utensils. So the purpose is really twofold. First of all, you're going to end up with an enormous quantity of starter that is just mind-boggling. And then secondly, you need to kind of remove some and add some, and that's just kind of part of the feeding cycle that needs to happen in order to really properly get the yeasts going. All right, so you're going to do that for about the next 3 to 7 days. So you can see that this is like a 10 to 12 day process of just getting it going. All right, and so that is your mission for the next 10, 12 days, to get this thing going, feed it. It does recommend in the instructions to feed it every 12 to 24 hours. And if you are in a hurry and you want to increase your quantity of starter rapidly, you can feed it on a 12-hour cycle. But honestly, it gets a little bit out of hand. Like I said, you're going to increase, your quantities in the jar pretty quickly, and there's really no need. Let's just go slow, and let nature take its course and run on its own time schedule. So I wouldn't go overboard with feeding. And every 24-hour cycle is certainly plenty, and that's what I did. Now, sometimes I would, do it in the morning instead of the evening. So I would do it the morning of one day and the evening the following. That's more than 24 hours. It's okay. Don't worry. You're not going to kill your starter by doing that. But do try to stick with, a once-a-day cycle. And it might be easier to just do it, in the evenings when you are home and relaxed and you're making dinner or something. Just throw in some, some flour and water, mix it up, and be done. I mean, it literally only takes a few seconds. So, but you are going to need to be consistent about this and do this every day. You have now made a commitment. I'm sorry to tell you, but you've made a commitment to sourdough. And that means that you now have a new thing that is relying on you to feed it and properly care for it, just like a pet. So just treat it like it's an animal, and it needs daily feedings and waterings. And if you come to just look at it that way, it just becomes a habit. And literally, it takes no time at all. All right, let's talk about 2 things. 1, the flour. As I mentioned last week, simple all-purpose flour is totally fine. Don't go crazy with bread flours, which are a little bit more expensive. Don't introduce whole wheat. Don't introduce spelt or, anything else, all right? Or any funky flours, just anything exotic. Don't bother. Just stick with all-purpose flour for now. That's really all I ever use, and other bakers also just recommend just go with all-purpose. When you start introducing other flours, you can kind of change the chemistry a little bit, and then it gets a little bit iffy. So I tried a rye flour starter and I didn't quite get it right. I'm going to try it again someday, but you know what, that just requires a little bit different caretaking. So there's the flour, all right, all purpose. If it's regular or organic, that doesn't matter either. So whichever one you prefer. Now the water. Now, I do not recommend under any circumstances, especially if you live in the state of California, to use tap water. Tap water has just unfortunately far too many iffy things in it that could kind of be detrimental to your starter. Let's just put it that way. I highly recommend that you use filtered water, good quality water that isn't tap. All right, so bottled, filtered in some way, shape, or form is best. You want you want a water that has no impurities and nothing to challenge the yeasts that you're trying to encourage to grow. Okay, so at the end of this 10-day feeding period where we're getting our starter activated, you're going to want to start doing something with it, right? And I wouldn't do anything with it before that 10-day period. And in the beginning, like I said, after day 5, you're going to need to start discarding some of it before you feed it. And I kept wondering, this is so wasteful, throwing away the starter. Is there nothing I can do with that? Well, actually there is, and that's what we're going to practice on with our sourdough. We're going to actually use some of that discard and do something with it. And one of my favorite things to do with discard is make my own crackers. I know you're probably thinking, why? There are so many crackers on the market, and yes, there are, but unfortunately, I'm an avid label reader, and so many crackers have very questionable ingredients in them, usually some kind of not so good for you oils, and often a lot of other, iffy ingredients. I'm just a purist. I want just flour, water, and maybe some butter or something like that. And this recipe is really wholesome because it's all fresh, whole ingredients. What I make is a butter herb cracker, and it's delicious. I literally make a batch like every other week, and it only lasts like a couple of days, but I usually will make them, like I said, every couple of weeks because we enjoy them so much. I'll show you how to make those, and we're going to do that in the next video, where we use, like I said, some of that starter that we're discarding, and we will put it to some good use. The thing that we're going to make after that is we're going to practice on making some sourdough fluffy pancakes. And this is a really great way to get used to the idea of working with sourdough. Not necessarily the discard, but we're going to actually use some of our starter, and we're going to make what's called a sponge the night before, like on a Friday night. And we're going to let that sit overnight, allow that to ferment, and then in the morning we're going to add the rest of our ingredients, and we're going to have some really killer fluffy pancakes. And that's also a real favorite recipe of mine, and we'll be making those in the next video too. And then the following video is where we're going to get serious about bread. All right, so hang in there with me. Again, this week your mission is to grow your starter, get a good healthy dose of starter going in your mason jar. We want by the way, for the crackers that we're going to be making, we need a full cup of sourdough starter. So make sure that you have at least a cup and a quarter of starter accumulated by the time we make those crackers, because we don't want a cup and then take all the starter away and have nothing left to keep growing, right? So make sure that you have built up your starter to the point where you have, like I said, about a cup and a quarter, because we're going to take a whole cup out of here. And it's fine, don't worry, it'll be okay. I do it all the time, and that's what we're gonna do in the next video. All right, so get busy, mix up your starter, watch it grow. It's pretty exciting, and I know, I need a life. But this becomes kind of like your new favorite thing, your new pet, and it'll become your best friend soon. All right, so let's just talk right now, because we're talking about starter. You're not there yet, but at some point, okay, you're gonna get a little bit tired of feeding your starter. Let's be honest. It does become a little bit too much after a while. And not to fret, because here's what you do. At some point, again, down the road, after you've been working with a little bit, you're gonna need a little break. The holidays are coming up, you might be going out of town and wondering, oh my gosh, what am I supposed to do with Sadie, my sourdough starter? A lot of people name their sourdough starters, so you might want to start thinking of a name. So Sadie here, she gets put on ice, so to speak. What you're going to do is you're going to put your sourdough starter in the fridge, and that basically slows down the process. It doesn't stop it, it doesn't kill it, but you are slowing it down considerably. So instead of feeding Sadie once a day, I'm going to feed her once a week. And I mean, that's kind of nice, right? So what you're going to do is you're going to take your cheesecloth off, and then you're going to use one of two different lids. So, you can use the traditional mason jar lid of, the metal cap and the ring that simply goes on like so, and you screw that onto your jar. You could do it that way. Or what I like even better, because these metal bands and lids, they rust and you have to kind of replace them all the time. What works great is just simply a plastic lid. I bought these, I think, on Amazon, a box of them, and they last virtually forever. You can throw them in the dishwasher and just pop this guy on your mason jar and stick it in the fridge. It's a little bit easier to get on and off, and they're super inexpensive. And like I said, you can wash them a little bit easier than the metal lids. So let's talk now about where to store your starter. The best place for your mason jar is to be left out on the counter. Don't lock it away in a cabinet somewhere because you want it out of sight. Don't put it on top of, warm appliances or anything like that, unless your house or your apartment is super cold. Then it might not be a bad idea actually to do that, but I wouldn't put it like in the oven so that your pilot light in there keeps it warm. I wouldn't do that, because you want to encourage the passage of air around your starter. You want to encourage the organisms to come and multiply in your mason jar. And so therefore, speaking of air moving over it, it's not a bad idea. I have read on other baking websites to put your starter right by the window, and open the window, crack it open, and just put your mason jar just right up against the screen and just let the fresh air come and hit it. I've done that, and I have noticed a considerable boost in activity, so it does like some fresh air. So thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye for now.